Hi friends, today we're going to see the past year NEET questions for the chapter Sexual Reproduction in Flowering Plant, and today in this video we will cover part 5. Now let's begin with the first question, which was asked in the year 1992. Meiosis is best observed in dividing dash. So out of the 4 options, the right answer is microsporocyte. So what are these microsporocytes? It is a diploid cell. Okay, what are they? They are a diploid cell that undergoes meiosis to produce microspores as a part of microsporogenesis, and this is also called as microspore mother cell, pollen mother cell, and they are composed of microsporocytes, which are diploid cells capable of undergoing meiosis to form tetrad. That is, tetrad means 4 in number. Okay, therefore the right answer to this question is option D, microsporocytes. So microsporocytes or microspore mother cell after meiosis gives rise to microspore, while no other cells will undergo meiosis. Therefore the right answer is option D. Next question here. Pollination occurs in dash. This question was asked in the year 1991. So what do you mean by pollination? What do you mean by pollination? How can you describe pollination? See, pollination is capable only for plants which produce flowers and seeds, right? Pollination is the act of transferring the pollen grains from the male. So the male part is the anther and the female part is a stigma of the flower to the female stigma. The goal of every living organism, including plants, is to produce an offspring for the coming generation. So one way the plant will produce an offspring with the help of the seeds. So out of the 4 options given here, option C, angiosperms and gymnosperms are the only 2 plant categories which produce seeds and flowers. Therefore the right answer to this question is option C. Next question here. Embryo sac occurs in dash, and this question again asked in the year 1991. Okay, so what do you mean by embryo sac? Embryo sac, it's an oval structure, right? It is an oval structure within the ovule of the angiosperms that contains the egg. So I have a picture which shows that. Embryo sac, you have the egg cells, synergids, polonuclei, antipodals, and many things. So what is this? This is an oval structure within the ovule of the angiosperms that contains the egg. So embryo sac contains the right answer is option ovule. What does it contain? It's an oval structure which contains ovule. Therefore the right answer is option C. Next question here. Which of the following pair has haploid structures? Haploid means N. Diploid means 2N. So which of the following pair has haploid structure? So I have something to your right. You can just refer that. Nucleolus 2N, antipodal cells 1. Antipodal cells N, egg cell N. Antipodal cells are N, megaspore mother cell 2N. Okay, so I've given you this thing. You just have to tell me which one is haploid. So here if you clearly see, antipodal cells are haploid. They have N, right? This is all diploid. Therefore the right answer is option antipodal cells and the egg cell. So egg cell is also haploid. It has NN. Therefore the right answer is option B. Next question here. Point out the odd one. Okay, we have 4 options here. Okay, just point out the odd one. See, if you clearly see here, nucleolus, microphyll, embryo sac. Okay, they are found in these 3 are found in the ovule, right? Do you agree with me? While the pollen grain, if you see, it is associated with the male gametophyte. Therefore the odd one is the polar grain, which is option D. Next question here. Singammy means dash. Very easy question. What do you mean by Singammy? It's the fusion of gametes. You already know what the answer is. So the fusion of the male gamete with the egg is called as Singammy. Male and the female, the fusion, you call that as Singammy, which is option A, and you have a diagram which shows Singammy there, where the male and the female gamete fuse to form a zygote. Next one. Which one produces androgenic haploids in anther cultures, and this question was asked in the year 1990. So androgenic haploids are produced by the young pollen grains because rest of them are diploid. Okay, so the right answer is pollen grains. Connective tissue, anther wall, and that is staply anther wall, and this anther wall, they are all diploid in nature. The one which is haploid, if you see, it's the pollen grains. Therefore, androgenic haploids in anther cultures are produced from the young pollen grains, which is option D. Next question here. Male gametophyte of angiosperms or monocots is dash. See, the male gametophyte development in angiosperms, pollen grains develop in the stamen, which consist of filaments supporting the anther. The vascular bundles in the filament conduct nutrients from the mother plant to the anther. The cross-section of the anther before the onset of meiosis shows 4 microsporangia where the male gametophytes develop. From outside to inside, the anther wall consists of epidermis, the endothelium, and the middle layer of the tapetum. Both the middle layer and the tapetum degenerate towards the pollen maturity. So if you clearly see here, male gametophyte of angiosperms or monocots is actually a microspore. Okay, that's what they're trying to say out of all these explanations that they're giving. The generative nucleus is then isolated in a separate compartment within the vegetative cell, and there it forms a bicellular polar grain. During polar maturation, the vacuole of the vegetative cell gradually decreases in size, and the accumulation of the starch granules is observed. So all this, if you see, it is associated with the microspore. Therefore, the right answer is option C. Okay, microspore. Microspore is haploid, uninucleate, minute spore produced in large number as a result of meiosis in microspore mother cell inside the microsporangia. And these are the first cell of gametophytic generation in angiosperms. Therefore, the right answer is option C. Next question here. Female gametophyte of angiosperms is represented by. Very, very easy question. Any idea what they are? Female gametophyte of angiosperms. See, we have 4 options here. Ovule, megaspore mother cell, and then we have nucleolus embryo sac. Female gametophyte of angiosperms is represented with the help of embryo sac. Embryo sac, if you see, it is a 7-celled structure. Okay, and there is a large central wall with 2 polar nuclei, egg apparatus with egg cell and 2 synergids present in the micropyle cell, and you call that as micropylar cells. And then you have 3 antipodal cells are also seen to there. Therefore, the right answer to this question is option C, embryo sac. So you can see the synergids, antipodals, then you have micropylar end, polar nuclei, everything. Next question here. Entry of the pollen tube to the micropyle is dash, and this question was asked in the year 1990. It is actually called as sporogamy. In porogamy, the tip of the pollen tube enters the micropyle, pushes through the nuclear tissue, and finally pierces the egg apparatus end of the embryo sac. If pollen tube enters if it enters into the callosal side, it is called as callosocomy, and it enters literally and it forms. If it enters laterally, then it is called mesogamy. Entry of the pollen grain through a micropyle is actually called as sporogamy, and here you have the 3 that I mentioned here. Poro, meso is lateral entry, and callosocomy is enters through the callosal side. So when you saw the embryo sac, you saw something on the top part, right? So that's what is denoting here. Next question here. Generative cell was destroyed by the laser, but a normal pollen tube was still formed because of dash, and this question was asked in the year 1989. Each microspore divide by, how do they divide? By mitotic division, making a smaller generative cell and a larger vegetative cell or tube cell. If generative cell is damaged, then the normal pollen tube will be formed because the pollen tube is formed by the vegetative cells and not by the generative cell of the microspore. So here, if you see, with the overall explanation given, you can understand that the vegetative cell remains undamaged or it doesn't get damaged. Therefore, the right answer to this question is option A. Next question here. Which is correct? You have to analyze the statements here. Gametes are invariably haploid. Yeah, that is the right answer. Gametes are haploid in nature. Spores are formed in the lower plants. So they are formed in the lower plants by mitotic division, and they may be diploid. But gametes are always formed by meiotic division. That's why they always remain haploid. Therefore, the right answer is option A. Male gametophyte of angiosperms is shed as dash. How is it shed? Is it four-celled or three-celled or anther or microspore mother cell? In majority of angiosperms, the pollen grains are shed in the form from the anther at the bicell stage. Okay, so one generative cell, one vegetative cell. But in some angiosperms, the generative cell divides, forming two sperms prior to the dehiscence of the anther and pollen grains, and therefore it becomes three-celled at last. So initially it will be two, but certain angiosperms, they will have two sperms, it seems. Therefore the right answer is option B, three-celled pollen grain. Next question here. Total number of meiotic division required for forming 100 zygotes per 100 grains of wheat is dash. So if we require 100 zygotes require 100 pollen grains and 100 embryo sacs. If 100 pollen grains are formed from 25 microspore mother cells, while 100 embryo sacs are formed from 100 functional megaspores, which in turn they produce by 100 megaspore mother cells. Since there are out of 4 megaso degenerative in this case. So whatever I explained is to your right side, just compare and study. If 100 zygotes require 100 pollen grains and 100 embryo sacs, then if you clearly see here, 100 pollen grains, where is the point? It's here. 100 pollen grains are formed by 25 microspore. So what will be the answer? The answer will be option C, 125. Next question. So it will be 125 here. Okay. So if you clearly see here, I think you can understand the calculation here. So in the last they have mentioned something produced by 100 megaspore mother cells, since 3 out of the 4 megaspores will degenerate in each case. So since 3 out of 4 megaspores will degenerate in case, so it will not become double the number. So you require 125. Therefore the right answer is option C. With this we complete the part 5 of sexual flowering in plants. Hope to meet you in the next part with another set of questions. Thank you.